Hey there, this is Michelle Rayburn with Indie Author Blueprint, and today we're continuing with part 2, talking about adding IngramSpark to expand your reach. In part 1, we talked about how to know if you're ready to go wide, and if you're here, you probably already have your book published on Amazon KDP, which is fantastic. So now you're ready for the next step, making your book available to bookstores, libraries, and non-Amazon retailers by adding IngramSpark. If you've already added expanded distribution on KDP and tested it out a little bit, you will have to go in and turn that off, and then you can follow the procedures that you'll find on IngramSpark for what to do to, give it a little bit of time when you turn that off. Don't do it like the same day, but turn it off, give it a little bit of time, like even a week or two, then go into IngramSpark and put in the information, and it will check if it's eligible for expanded distribution. Now, we're going to be talking about why it's a smart move and how it works alongside KDP not instead of KDP. And we'll talk about what you need to understand about wholesale discounts and returns and the profitability before you just dive in and do this. So, like I said, if you've already enabled expanded distribution on KDP and you've been testing it out and you're seeing that your book is doing really well and you'd like to expand because you're new to indie author, the whole journey as a publisher, then now we're going to be thinking about how do we add on IngramSpark. And one of the reasons that it checks for that availability is because if you've done this the right way and you've used your own ISBN number, it's going to check as long as it's removed from those databases, then it's eligible for you to have it in two places as long as you're not expanding to the same places. So if it's on KDP and it's not expanded, it's only going to Amazon, and it's international markets, but it's Amazon markets. And then you're using IngramSpark in order to reach the places like Barnes & Noble and those. When you've checked expanded distribution on Amazon KDP, you're telling it to send it to places like Barnes & Noble. And if you check it also on IngramSpark, it's not going to work because those two places are overlapping. So that's why we uncheck expanded distribution on Amazon KDP, and then we instead are using IngramSpark for that piece of the distribution. So if you run into some snags, you're going to have to look for online tutorials because I can't cover all the scenarios here, but there are some issues people run into. First, if you used a free ISBN number from Amazon KDP, it's not going to work. Don't even look for a tutorial. It's not going to work because Amazon KDP owns that ISBN number. They have registered it, and you can't release the book with that ISBN number somewhere else if you don't own it. So, that's an issue. If you're going to do that, you have to figure out, am I going to release it with a different ISBN, have two versions of the book? Problem is, you could end up with two versions on Amazon competing against each other as well. Like I said, it gets a little complicated. But if you've done it the way that I recommend, where you buy your ISBN number on Bowker, you own it, now you are able to release the very same ISBN number in more than one place because you own it. So now let's imagine you've done that work and you know it's available. You can release it on IngramSpark. Well, first, why add IngramSpark? Well, I've talked about it briefly in part 1, but let's get a little bit deeper into it here. KDP is great for Amazon sales because it's free, it's easy to use, and it ensures your book is always in stock and it ships quickly to Amazon customers. Generally, what happens is bookstores and libraries do not order from Amazon. They can, but they don't. I talked about that in the last episode. They generally order from Ingram. And so having it on Ingram lets them use the catalog that they use every day. But it also means you earn a little bit less depending on what pricing strategy you've used there. This means, though, that a bookstore can special order your book when a customer asks for it. Libraries can find it in their existing systems, and your book is treated professionally like any other professional title that's in the Ingram database. So essentially, you're not replacing KDP, you're adding another distribution channel so you can reach readers everywhere. Now, you want to set yourself up for success. You want to use, like I said, your own ISBN number. If you're starting from scratch, let me get that into you right now. You're going to use your own ISBN number. You're going to purchase it from Bowker My Identifiers, not from any other discount it. You're going to pay the full price for it and get it there because you want full ownership. Those discounted ones come with all kinds of issues. I always tell clients that. I've had a few who've decided to do it anyway and they got kind of stuck. So go ahead and get it from Bowker, My Identifiers. You're going to upload to IngramSpark after KDP goes live. I realize you can do it the other way around. You can do pre-orders. I know all the things you can do with IngramSpark. I also know that all of those things can have glitches and just lead you to have kind of a challenge with KDP if you release it in the wrong order. I know it works for some people. It does not work for everyone. And in fact, once I set up a book on IngramSpark one time, it caused issues with me being able to continue with the process of getting my author copies before my book released on Amazon. So what you're going to do is you're going to release it on Amazon before you start messing around too much with IngramSpark, including before you put the ISBN number and get all of that in there. So you're going to just go ahead and have it come out a little later on those other places. The other thing you want to make sure that you're doing is knowing that your retail price needs to match between KDP and IngramSpark. If the price is lower anywhere else, Amazon may price match, which actually could affect your royalty. So we're going to make sure that you have the same cover price in both places. Now let's talk about understanding wholesale discounts and returns, because this is the place where most authors get confused, and I want to break it down step by step. Bookstores need to buy your book at a wholesale discount so they can mark it up to fulfill the retail price and still make a profit. Imagine if they're holding your book on their shelves and they made like 50 cents or something on the sale of your book. They are not going to want to have your book if they're not making a profit because they're the ones paying the rent on that bookstore. So your books need to be at a fair price for them to make a profit. So let's just run an example. This is a little tougher to do with indie author publishing because we often pay a little bit more to get our books printed, and therefore we tend to put our cover prices a little higher. We can't quite put them at those low places where some of the ones that are printed bulk are done, but we try to get close. So let's say we have a book that we're pricing at $14.99 retail price. And let's imagine that the print cost is $3.65. What happens here is when we give a wholesale discount, it comes off the retail price. It comes off the cover price. So we could calculate the discount. Let's say $14.99, we're giving a 55% discount. That means we're going to discount it $8.24. And so the bookstore is going to purchase it at 45% of the cover price. That way, when they sell it at the full cover price, they're going to get that extra $8.24 that you've discounted. That's how wholesaling works. When there's a retailer who sells anything, I mean, even any little store with trinkets or anything you see in the mall, that they order them somewhere at a wholesale and then they resell. So now we have to subtract the discount from the retail price, and now we realize that we get $6.75, if I've done the math right here, of that $14.99. Okay, so the bookstore gets $8.24 from the cover price. I get $6.75. However, I don't, because I have a cost at a publisher. I have spent $3.65 to print that book. And so that's my cost for that wholesale merchandise I'm offering. Now, it's happening print on demand, so it's happening. I'm not paying it ahead of time, but when they place the order, IngramSpark says, okay, you owe me this much for the printing of those books. So that means my net profit per copy at that cover price is $3.10. That's what I earn per bookstore sale. The book gets $8.24, the bookstore does. I get $3.10. Now, if I set a lower discount, let's say 40%, I earn more per copy, but many bookstores won't order because the profit margin is too small for them to profit. I tend to go like right around 50% for mine. I don't go lower than that if I can help it, unless it's one that costs me a lot to print and I know that like the hardcover or something, and I know they're probably not carrying it anyway. But I'm trying to make it so that the bookstore makes some money and they want to order it. Now, the other factor that comes in here is returns. Bookstores want books that are returnable. I touched on this in the last episode. They want to be able to return unsold books for credit. And so if you make your book returnable, this removes the risk for the bookstore. I actually don't make most of mine returnable, and I know that this also makes it difficult for me to get my books in some stores, but it helps me to discourage a store from purchasing a lot of copies that would end up having to get returned to me, and I would end up losing a lot of money. So, unsold books, then, if they return them, they're either shredded and pulped. And if that happens, you don't pay the shipping, but you do lose the wholesale payment. And so you lose whatever you got for the book. And so that means you paid for the discount and you paid for the printing costs and everything. And so you don't get that back. You could also set it so that if a book is returned, it goes to you, they get shipped to you, you get them in your stock, and you could sell them or do whatever. The problem for that is that then you pay the shipping to get them to you, and you've already purchased them. And so most indie authors choose returnable destroy because it's the least risk financially, because you don't have to pay for the shipping on top of it. However, you're taking that risk. Let's say it cost me $3.65 per copy to do that printing. I don't know how many books are being purchased by stores. So it's a challenge for you to decide what's the best thing for your business model. And so I know there are many people who do make them returnable. And sometimes I've done that in the beginning when I release a book to see what will happen. And then I change that a little bit later for subsequent sales, just to test the waters a little bit and see if somebody will pick it up. But that will be up to you to decide if that works for you. Now, why keep KDP active then for Amazon? Well, if you rely on IngramSpark for the Amazon distribution, then what's going to sometimes happen is your book will mark as ships in a certain number of days or it's temporarily out of stock, which buyers don't love. They want to see that the book is in stock and it can ship to you right away. And in stock means it's going to be printed on demand. It doesn't mean it's in a warehouse at Amazon, but it's in stock because they can print it. And it doesn't work exactly the same way when you have it through IngramSpark. I also find that when I'm doing it through Amazon, if I'm offering a discount of 50 or 55%, I'm actually earning less money in the long run because I'm giving Amazon a bigger discount than what they would require. So I tend to put all of my books then, keep them active on Amazon, and they will sell there. And all the other sales will happen through IngramSpark. And how does this work? Well, once you release the book on IngramSpark, it checks the database. It can see that it's already available on Amazon, and it just doesn't distribute it there. So that's how it works. If you're using the same ISBN, you don't end up with like double listings and competing against yourself on there. There are some common mistakes then to avoid. One, like I've mentioned, a mistake is not using your own ISBN numbers. This creates conflicting records and it confuses retailers. One is forgetting to match the prices or setting too low of a discount so that there's not enough margin for the bookstore. This is just reviewing the ones I've already gone over. There's that risk of having them non-returnable. Maybe a bookstore will pass you up. The process looks different on both Amazon and KDP. And so there are some mistakes you can make along the way there as well. You'll have to have the files created in the way that each platform wants, and it is different for IngramSpark, especially on your cover. They want it in their template, and then also the way ebooks work. You'll sometimes get error messages on the ebook if you're trying to put them on both, and you'll have to do some fixing in there. If you've enabled that expanded distribution in IngramSpark, and maybe you did it before you were ready, you can't just turn it off. If you've set it up and it's releasing, you have to actually get connected to customer service to make that happen. You can't just unpublish a book after you've published either. That used to be something you could do if you've done this before, you've heard of it, but it is not something that you can do as easily now. So don't make the mistake of rushing and hitting publish on something you weren't ready to do. Like I said, I don't do the pre-orders through IngramSpark because I would only do that if I were not distributing through Amazon KDP. And here's a reason for why I'm considering doing an upcoming book only with IngramSpark and not with Amazon KDP. And that's because Amazon doesn't have the format I want. It doesn't have the trim size that I want in a hardcover. And so for me, it's just kind of an art thing where I want it to be this certain shape and size, and it's just not one they have. So I'm going to be experimenting and releasing it only through IngramSpark just to see how that process goes too. The big picture then in your takeaway here is that IngramSpark is the next level in your publishing journey. It doesn't replace KDP, it complements it. So when you combine the two, you expand your reach into bookstores and libraries, and you make your book available to nearly every reader everywhere. Before you take the leap, there are some technical things to understand, like when you're uploading your book, the process is a little different. On KDP, you upload it, you get to the end, and once you hit submit, they look at it, and as soon as it's approved, it's published. On IngramSpark, you approve you send it to them, they look at it, they send you back this digital proof, which is essentially the same thing, just in a PDF file, all ready to go. You approve that, and then after that approval, you enable it for distribution, but there's that extra step in there. It's not like an automatic release. And so you have to get to know those steps. And I'm not going to show those specifically in this episode. Maybe on the next time I release a book, I would film like I've done with KDP, walking through the setup process. But once you've created the metadata for Amazon, I keep it in a Word file, all of my keywords, my categories, the book description, all that stuff. I just copy and paste all that same information into IngramSpark when I'm setting it up. So it makes that process fairly easy so that everything is pretty much the same when I do that. So that's my tip for you if you're setting it up. Put all that metadata into a file so you're ready to distribute it wherever you need to. In the next episode, we're going to take it one more step. We're going to talk about building a long game publishing strategy, looking at profit margins a little bit more, looking at how you can think like a publisher so that you can keep doing this for years to come. So if you've gotten this far and you're like, yeah, IngramSpark's just that one's not the next level for me, then go back and review some of the other episodes I have, because we are taking it one level deeper. I'm not trying to talk you out of listening, but I'm just saying that this is your business and you get to decide what's for you. And so if you've gotten to here and you're like, I'm just going to go back and put my effort into KDP and marketing, that's okay too. It's just not for everybody. You don't have to expand your reach wider, and you still can be successful without this. So I hope that didn't overwhelm you. I hope that was helpful. Like I said, we'll be back with part 3 next week. Until then, if you are looking for all the bonus content, you'll find that on Substack. Just look for Indie Author Blueprint. And if you are looking to go even deeper, there's some paid content on there, but you'll find lots of free stuff too that's super helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I wish you the best as you consider expanding your publishing options.